a growing number of younger Americans aren't dating. They're not hanging out. And no, they're not even hooking up. For so many women who want to date men, dating has become a total nightmare.
What about for so many men trying to date women? The dating scene has become a total nightmare.
So I have heard from a lot of young women who want to date young men that there are none. There are no guys. They're trying to connect. They often use dating apps, but find a total lack of connection. And it seems that the men they are meeting don't really share the same priorities.
All of these women talking about men don't share their priorities. Should the man share the woman's priorities, or should the woman share the man's priorities? Rollo Tomasi speaks about this. He calls it the female imperative, which basically means as opposed to women moving on men's time clock, women want men to move on their time clock. This is why we say that men and women, when it comes to mating, are complete opposites. This is why a matriarchy and a patriarchy can't coexist. This is why equality is a myth, because the female imperative is, I want to have my fun. I want to be able to benefit from my looks and my beauty in my early 20s. Then in my 30s, I want to settle down and get married. Even if that woman is not promiscuous, if a woman is in her 30s, that means that she did not put men first in her life. She was looking to put her career or just having fun first. That's her imperative. A man's imperative is when you're about 20 years old, 21, 22, and you start being at peak fertility, the man wants to marry you and settle down. So this is why things are starting off on the wrong foot, because the woman is saying she wants a certain type of man, but then she's coming in with a very domineering attitude. She's coming in with preconceived notions, which would actually make her the leader in the relationship. And if y'all don't have an emotional investment that's that deep, why would a man want to go through all of that to get you to see that you have your priorities wrong?
If they show up. Women, especially career-driven women, say the men they're meeting are more interested in sex and not looking for a deeper connection, and that it's becoming more and more of a problem. So what's changing? Because not that long ago, people used to meet each other through work, let's be honest, or through friends, maybe at a bar or in a college campus, and it gave people a chance to actually learn about each other, to break through the filters, to demonstrate kindness and show commitment and values, to actually earn affection.
All of the things that women don't show. If you don't have everything she wants right now and you can't show it to her right now, she's out.
But today, so many people are living life through a screen. They're not going out nearly as much, not to church, not to movies, or even to the office. Opportunities to fall in love are falling by the wayside, meaning people are making decisions by swiping left on their smartphones rather than truly learning to connect. The highs, the lows, the disappointments, all of that stuff. It's all part of the process. And it's affecting mental health too. According to a recent study of people over the age of 18, those who used swipe-based dating apps experienced significantly higher rates of psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. Another study showed a link between using dating apps and experiencing loneliness, dissatisfaction with life, and this is a big one, a feeling of exclusion from the world, feeling so left out. And when women do go to coffee shops, what we're hearing is that they try, or to a club or the grocery store, or anything where they get out and interact with people, they say the men that they want to meet just don't share their ideals.
At this point, I just don't understand how women can't see that they're the problem. They're saying the men that they want. What about the men that they don't want? The men that they don't want probably outnumbers the men that they want. And then when they find the man that they want, they believe he's supposed to acquiesce to her.
It's partly because so many young men are spending their lives Also logged in, overly influenced by a flood of whatever you can find online: porn, video games, toxic masculinity. Who needs the real thing when you can get something better, and I put that in quotes, by scrolling?
You gotta pay attention to how people frame things. The way they just put men in a box is very interesting versus how they put women in a box. When they speak about women, they're looking for love, swiping left, swiping right on the app. They're innocent. But when it comes to men, they're doing a bunch of fruitless behaviors. They watching porn. They said that because if you haven't noticed, every time they talk about men, they demonize our sexuality. All they want to do is have sex. They on the phone watching porn, playing video games. And then every liberal's favorite, toxic masculinity. Where would the world be without toxic masculinity? One of the things she forgot to mention when it comes to talking about these young men is that women have said they don't need men. So now, once again, there are mixed signals. Do you need men or not? Do you want men? Okay, if you want men, then stop constantly sending out the messaging that you don't need men, that women don't need men, that women are independent. That's not how you're gonna get men to show up. So when she says, who needs the real thing when you can always get something better, men just go where they're appreciated, not tolerated. So if you're not appreciating men, what makes women better?
Here's what Scott Galloway, professor of marketing at NYU, told us on Morning Joe about some of the reasons why men are becoming like this.
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get a job. Go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship. You have YouPorn. So we have an entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. You know, there's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes.
I mean, where did they find Scott Galloway at? He said there's a reason why romantic films are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. Yes. And there's a reason why men have never liked romantic films. As a professor of marketing, you're talking about a market that men are not even interested in. You're supposed to know that. So for you to then say it's a reason why a romantic film is 2 hours and not 15 minutes, that's not encouragement. That's tone deaf. The other thing that he said that I found to be very interesting is that there are a bunch of companies marketing to men. Are we not going to talk about what's being marketed to women? When I look at the things that's being marketed to women, I believe it's far more damaging. A lot of it is misandrous. A lot of it is you don't need no man, be strong, be independent. A lot of it is promiscuity. I just made up a word.
True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates, that stuff is hard, but that's what real victory in real life is like. And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps, the number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down.
So all of this talk about you gotta work hard for a woman, a lot of men would be fine with that if you told a woman she gotta work hard for her man. But we say no. Women, work hard for yourself. Work hard to be the best you. When you get that job, look for a man that's on that level. Because if he can't take care of you and all the kids, he's not worth your time. We don't say, women, when you get that job, make sure you can take care of that man. So what is a man working hard for? To get a hard-working woman that only cares about herself?
You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life, and they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they're more prone to conspiracy theory, they're more prone to misogynistic content, they're less likely to believe in climate change, and some they become really bad citizens. We are producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
They love to blame men for the problems. Men are not looking for low entry ways to enter society. Men are looking for entry, period. Because right now, society's not making anything available to young men. We the most dangerous people in the world. Men are the most dangerous. Wow. So it's a problem if men don't believe in climate change. And what is a conspiracy theory exactly? Because we use conspiracy theory as a dismissive way not to listen. What is misogynistic content? Because a lot of this content that they're saying is misogynistic is not misogynistic. It's just they don't agree with the opinion. Scott has probably had conversations that we have online, but he did it in the locker room. So far, all I've heard from Scott is shaming language and finger wagging.
Wow. As Professor Galloway pointed out, 1 in 3 relationships used to begin at work. Now young people are not going into the office as often. And if you are a young man at work, are you more or less inclined to express some sort of romantic interest in a potential partner now than you were 40 years ago? The answer is clearly no. And by the way, men and women have been told in many places that if you have feelings for someone at work, you have to go to HR first. That'll kill the moment. And I get why that's the policy. I get how we got here. Having said that,
do you get why that's the policy? And if so, why is it that way?
The unforeseen consequences of the Me Too movement, or of Me Too in general, and the problems that began the movement, that's a show we need to do at some point. And we have to have a really honest conversation about that. But that's not this show.
Yeah, they don't want to have a really honest conversation on this show where they're talking about the problems in dating and some of the movements that they created that created the problem.
I'm just saying, having to go to HR is kind of a hard start. Jen, why don't you start? What are the biggest concerns you have here?
Yeah, look, Mika, first of all, I met my husband at work at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He asked me out over email and brought me ice cream. It was a much more traditional way of meeting someone. Look, I think the biggest concern I have here is the mental health impact on young people. And we've seen that in statistics and a ton of reporting about the disconnect. And you just went over a fair amount of it for men, certainly, and also for women. And I just think anecdotally of talking to a lot of women I work with, who I have the pleasure of working with on my team, they, men and women have been wanting to just have sex for decades, right? That's not new. I think they're still probably they're hooking up still, right?
Thank you for saying that. Because y'all act like it's only the men. That's how you try to paint it in the beginning of the segment, like all these men wanted sex. Well, if men know that hookup culture exists, why wouldn't they say they want sex? And why are women acting disgusted when men say they want sex? It's the same problem as the Me Too movement.
But it's more about that deeper connection. And as Scott said, relationships are work.
First and foremost, when people say relationships are work, it all depends on how you look at work and how you look at relationships. So that's a bag of tricks. But if we move that to the side, whenever we look at work, we always got to ask ourselves, is the juice worth the squeeze? See, a lot of these women will say that relationships are work, but then once again, you asking a man to work for what? Something that you gave away for free. What is he working for? For a lot of men, when we hear women say you got to work, that means I'm your second option, your third option, your fourth option. You make them work. You don't make your first option work.
Yes, Simone, Americans are more lonely and isolated than ever. There's data on this. And what do you make of Professor Galloway's remarks on Morning Joe that we're producing too many of the most dangerous people in the world, namely young, broken, lonely men?
Office. And so I think that is a good thing. Look, I think about these lonely, broke, dangerous men. I don't really know, Mika. I'm not sold on the lonely, broke, and dangerous men.
I'm so glad she said that. And I'm also glad that she acknowledged the fact that she's not sold. Because what she's acknowledging, whether she knows it or not, is that there's a lot of dangerous propaganda out there about men.
I really connect with your reticence about the lonely, broken, dangerous. I guess the inference that you have to have a woman to fix that, like you can fix that yourself.
Look, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I totally agree with her. This is something that men can fix themselves. I do think that men and women are better together, okay? And at the same time, if we keep telling women they don't need men and men that they need women, we set men up to be in toxic relationships with women. But also, too, that messaging doesn't resonate with men. So not only are we setting them up to be in toxic relationships, we're also not giving men the motivation to actually want to be in a relationship with a woman anyways. I think a lot of these people just casually speak about relationships, but if they actually dug a little bit deeper and did more investigation, they would find out what most of us have already found out, which is that women are the problem. Anywho's, if you like this video, I have more videos similar to this one. Click the link below to check out my next video, and I'll see y'all over there. Peace.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.